Our talk today focuses on the fact that Panasonic has elected to decline to produce batteries for Tesla in the new Shanghai factory. We also cover new methods for electric management on long distances when it comes to busy times of the year. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Inside. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time on our channel, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. Also wanted to thank our Patreon supporters. Your help is greatly appreciated. So we're going for extra echo here, if you will, and we're sort of doing a studio redo. So we've given up the closet in order to avoid that look. But now we have a little bit more of an echo because we don't have the confined space. So we look forward to your input on ideas on this. So I wanted to do a show today. We're sort of tracking what happens in the future with batteries for Tesla. So we finally have a concrete statement. Over the last, let's say, 5 months, there's been a number of discussions, among them discussions suggesting that there are problems in the relationship between Panasonic and Tesla, driven by Panasonic slowing down the production rate of the Model 3. What we also learned is that there are a number of issues going on between the two partners, and most of those were sort of behind the scenes, non-public. So we finally got some public news, which is the CEO of Panasonic announced that they would not be participating in the production of batteries in the Shanghai factory. So, and as you know, there is a new battery facility that's being built next to that new factory. So it's an interesting circumstance. So what we wanted to review is kind of what are the details of this and what's going on and what are the implications. And so basically, I'll open with maybe slightly a joke. There was a while back when I was part owner of a boat, and it was informed to me that whenever two people own a boat, one of the problems that can pop up is you might get a call from your partner one day that informs you that the boat has a leak, and the leak is in your half. So basically, the factory in Fremont, or in the battery factory that Panasonic is a part of in Reno, is set up in an unusual way. Unusual in the fact that while it's considered a Tesla factory, the money to build it was actually split between Panasonic and Tesla. The challenge, though, is that Tesla is taking delivery of batteries that are produced by Panasonic, and then they do the rest with it in terms of building battery packs, attaching thermal management systems, and integrating it into the car. So one of the many challenges Panasonic has had is the fact that Tesla being short on cash means they need to give very long terms to Tesla before they pay, and that means that the numbers on the Panasonic side tend to be kind of ugly relative to investors being happy with their financial performance. So Panasonic has been having some rough financial performance while Tesla's been doing fine. And we believe that's really driven by accounts payable and receivable challenges that Panasonic is having with Tesla. And we could add on other issues that have been occurring that you've noticed regarding how many batteries are being produced by Panasonic and how fast they're ramping to meet the needs that Tesla might have. That hasn't been a totally in sync situation. So the list of sort of arguments between the partners has been long. Right now, where we're at, from what we can tell, is that Panasonic is still producing. The new factory in China won't be ready probably for another year before they'll be able to start producing batteries. From what we've deduced, there are 3 options that Tesla has. Number 1, produce their own batteries there. That's why they're hiring folks to execute the research they've been doing in terms of the battery technology. Option number 2 is what's been discussed a lot, is whether or not LG or CATL, LG, out of South Korea, or CATL, which is a Chinese manufacturer, would win that contract. And the third, well, there are actually four options. The third option is Elon had discussed the fact that they may not, in fact, build a new factory in China, which they are currently. And what they would do is simply double the amount of production coming out of the Reno plant to meet the needs that are there. And so that option seems to be what's going on right now. So what we thought, I guess we thought it was going to be just three options. There's a fourth option that we've really been looking forward to and have not seen yet, but we think makes a lot of sense. The market cap right now of Panasonic is actually $22 billion. So one of the other options that Tesla has is simply whip out some cash and some stock, buy Panasonic, and now they can have Panasonic as a partner as much as they want because they own them and they can install new facilities globally. And so we think that this is one option that is certainly on the table that they may consider. Now, one of the elements that we put into the front of this is one of the reasons why Panasonic is choosing to go this route is that from what we can gather, they've had a relationship with Toyota for at least 30 or 40 years. Prior to the relationship with Tesla and building batteries together, Tesla was buying batteries. After surveying to find out who was the best, it was determined that the best choice was Panasonic based on many factors, especially energy density being the highest. And so as a result, once they were chosen, the relationship obviously has gotten stronger, but the Toyota relationship predates this, and Toyota has elected to now decide to go heavy electric, and they've implemented an interesting strategy process relative to Tesla and Panasonic. So key elements of this include, number one, the fact that Toyota has now created a joint venture with Panasonic, shipped over 3,500 employees into this joint venture that's 51% Toyota controlled, 49% Panasonic controlled. They're also shipping over all of their future R&D in batteries, as well as their current electric battery production, all over to this joint venture that'll be run by Panasonic. And so this is the CEO of Toyota has indicated that all of this is in line with the fact that they're planning on having, by 2025, about 25% of their vehicles operating on electric batteries. Now, up to date, over the last perhaps 15 years, Panasonic and Tesla and Toyota have had a relationship in which they've been producing hybrid drivetrains. So entities like GM, obviously Toyota, there's a number of companies that have been paying the dual of Panasonic and Toyota to get the hybrid vehicles you currently see out there that can get way better gas mileage, but flipping between electric as well as ICE. And so obviously they're just choosing to expand this partnership because it's worked well in the past. But there's been a lurking question as to, well, wait a second, if Panasonic is building batteries for Tesla, how can they at the same time be having a relationship with Toyota, and how is this all going to work? And from what we can see, Toyota has made a decision that as they move strong into the battery space, they actually are moving to make sure they build their own production facilities that are in-house to execute this. And so I was sort of fascinated by watching this all play out, because clearly one of Elon's comments about how they source everything is the fact that they try to figure out if they can do or make a solution better than others. If they can, then they'll do it in-house. If they can't, they ship it out of house. So clearly, in the battery space, the global standard for great batteries is Panasonic. They have a huge amount of experience, And so they've been Tesla's primary or principal battery producer. So again, I always find it interesting with the news where they're like all the batteries coming out of Reno are produced by Tesla. And the reality is that the battery packs are produced by Tesla, but the batteries are all a Panasonic sort of very secretive process. It'll be interesting to see as Tesla starts either making its own batteries or chooses to go out and get an outside manufacturer to come into the space in Shanghai to determine how that's going to all work out. Now, so for this segment of our show, our focus was just on the fact that, this is an interesting development, and it's unknown how Tesla's going to respond to this recent development from the folks at Panasonic saying, we're not interested in producing batteries for you. So we should also note that we think that this is a huge challenge for Tesla, given the fact that Tesla's market cap is about $56 billion. Toyota's market cap is $260 billion. So Toyota is the largest auto company in the world, and they're doing a lot of things. They have a lot of cash, they have a lot of capabilities, as we've described, based on the facilities they've had in-house that were kind of not discussed heavily. So we think that this is actually, a clear sign of a great manufacturer coming after Tesla. And let's not forget, one of the reasons they're number one in the world is the quality of cars, the dealer network they have. There are all these different ways in which Panasonic delivers value to their customer base, and it's appreciated in the fact that they are the global leader in auto sales and revenue, as well as market cap. So one of the questions that sort of fired across the screen was kind of what's going on with production in China. There's a whole bunch of people that are wondering the same thing, and there are drones that are going up on a regular basis, tracking the number of vehicles coming out of the Shanghai factory. The suggestion that we've had is that the production run is about 3,000 vehicles a week right now, and the total, it lines up to so after January 1st is when we end the quarter. So in theory, we're now facing 3,000 vehicles a week times basically 6 weeks is 18,000 vehicles-ish is what the expectation is currently of what production is looking like. So there are all these questions that nobody has a clear answer to, but we can guess. And the ultimate question is, how many vehicles are they going to produce within this quarter so that that can boost the overall sales and revenue number for Tesla heading into the next earnings announcement, which will definitely affect the stock dramatically. Will they come in under this number or way over this number? The answer is it's not really known, because the suggestion, as it's been discussed heavily, is it's been unknown how many battery packs Tesla's been able to ship from the Nevada facilities to China. And so once the answer to those is shown, we'll know what's happening. The other thing we think is fascinating to this is that there are all these crazy data points popping up. For example, the suggestion was that there was a delay in the approvals, but while the approvals were going on for the plant to start operating, they were actually producing with 3,500 employees, on the ground in production. There also has been suggestions that they're running one shift rather than two right now to get those vehicles out. We actually don't know what the backlog is of orders from Chinese customers. So, there are a bunch of no definitive answers coming from the company yet. We kind of get those answers as we find out what earnings are. You'll be able to break out the number of vehicles produced in Fremont and shipped to China / the number of cars from China, and you add up all those numbers to determine what the revenue is in the process. The interesting thing is that there's an interesting problem for Tesla, which is they're actually delivering cars from the U.S. to Chinese customers, particularly the dual motor and the performance is the ones we can think of. But the point was the cheapest version is the only one being produced in China. So they're actually doing deliveries already. Now, when will they choose to say, hey, this is a Chinese versus an American version as they deliver to our customer? We don't know. One of the suggestions was that the Chinese customers would not get access to Chinese produced vehicles until the end of January, which we think is kind of strange because there are 18,000 vehicles produced, and that's just too many vehicles to stack up at the plant and not have them delivered. So therefore, it's our estimate that there's going to be about 18,000 cars delivered by the end of this calendar year / the end of this quarter. And at 50,000 apiece, you can see what the revenue contribution is to Tesla in the process. And therefore, you can sort of add that on to what the numbers were for last quarter for production in the 3-month actually. Any rate, I also wanted to note to you, we can definitely see the questions that are being posed, and we'll make a point of sort of taking them and putting them underneath all the other comments made at the end of the show, so we can bring folks into the conversation that were not here for the live feed. And so hence, I can move on to my last topic without a problem, and that is we've been asked by one of our viewers to make a point of we've been asked by one of our viewers to make a point of looking at sort of energy issues relative to Tesla. And there's a problem that we've been studying for Tesla for a long time. We have a friend of the show, his name is Damien, and Damien is a Stanford PhD who got me into the whole Tesla fan site stuff. And he and I were having a conversation yesterday about, so we have a place in the United States called San Francisco, we have a place called Los Angeles, and there's a roadway that runs between them called I-5. So one of the question marks that we've been focused on is Elon has articulated that he's really focused on trying to figure out how to manage sort of supercharging by cars on that freeway, because he can then take the lessons learned from that to other locations around the world. So what Elon pointed out was, when you look at the use of the superchargers, there's a place called Kettleman City, and there's a place called Harris Ranch. There may be 2 exits from each other, about 10 or 15 miles on I-5. And I believe the Kettleman City is one of the largest facilities in the United States. So what happened is that Elon explained that there's this problem, which is the supercharger wait is no more than an hour typically, all the time at both now facilities. The problem is when we get into long weekends, like this is the holiday weekend of Thanksgiving in the United States, you end up with this logjam of people on Friday night. Let's say in this case it would be the night before Thanksgiving, and then the return trip on Sunday night will result in lines that can be anywhere from 3 to 4 hours long before you can get your car recharged. And so he's really focused, the company and he have been focused on how do you deal with this bottleneck. And there are different strategies that they've been playing around with. For example, they give customers the option to have the battery pulled out of the car and then put in a battery pack, and that would take 15 minutes and you're gone. They tried this. Customers were saying, we're not real interested because we don't know if the quality of the pack is the equivalent of what we put in there, i.e. how well others have been driving their vehicles. We have no idea, so we're not interested in that option. So they kind of shut that down, even though it was an available way for people to move faster through that facility. The next idea, or sort of the newest idea that was being reviewed with me by Damien yesterday, is it was actually suggested by a friend of the show that Tesla would begin sharing data about optimal speeds as you're along I-5, so you could determine or pick when you'd run out of fuel, and therefore be able to pick the charging station that was appropriate. What Damien shared based on an August trip on I-5 is a new idea has come about, which is that why not do a 15-minute fill-up just as you clear the mountains in Southern California, or just as you come out of San Francisco. If you do a 15-minute, the charging speed is higher in the first 15 minutes than it is in the last 15 or 20 minutes. So therefore, you could basically end up with sort of get the you could basically get your charge on in a high-speed short burst rather than one long burst. And again, this is a strategy that allows you to skip the long line at the midpoint of that trip. So for those of you in Europe or other places where there are Teslas and there are long distances between spots and busy locations, you might consider this perhaps an earlier stop than you need to for a burst of energy. 15 minutes would get you not fully full, but allows you to skip the primary blockings of large numbers of vehicles in one spot. So this is a new thing that we've learned about. It was also suggested by a friend of the show that what might also happen is creating a database, based on temperature, wind speeds, etc. You would have a whole bunch of data being generated by the vehicle that could be shared with other cars, and therefore you have all these folks, sort of knowing what's going on and making decisions relative to how fast you're driving, et cetera, in the process. So it's kind of fascinating. One of our current viewers has been posing many questions about what the production level of batteries is out of the factory in Fremont, and out of the Reno facilities. And the answer to that is that we can imply how many batteries are produced by the number of cars that are getting batteries, both in China and in the US. And the answer is that it seems we saw a 23 megawatt hour number heading towards a full 35. And so that's the latest number we've seen on that that's been written about. But we really are relying on the end of the quarter number of cars delivered to sort of imply how many batteries are coming out of that facility as an answer to that question. But I think it's a good question. It's just that we can speculate on the number, but until we get company confirmation on what those numbers are, it's a little bit, it's clearly speculation on our part. And if we had sort of building blocks of other elements to work with, we definitely present those. And the only entity that we have is the suggestion that about 10,000 packs were actually shipped from the Reno facilities to China as production was starting up, and therefore they would follow up with more packs. So we think and Jerry just posed a question, does he think that we're actually going to see a new battery chemistry, hence the shift, and why Panasonic's not participating? From what I've seen, heard, no, there's not any chemistry change going on yet. We do expect Maxwell in the next year or so, the acquisition to start impacting what the production looks like for Tesla, but that Maxwell technology is going to be baked into Tesla's batteries by Panasonic, actually, because they're still making the batteries. So what we think is that it's like a divorce that's happening. It's a divorce that's happening in a slow, strange way. So we think eventually either Tesla's going to have to buy Panasonic or buy Panasonic out of that facility and produce its own batteries. Something's going to happen there, and it makes sense. What I do think I see down the future is based on what Panasonic just happened between Panasonic and Toyota. We actually believe that Toyota is getting ready to produce a large number of vehicles, 25% of the cars that they're producing in electric. And they've stated they need to build factories and do a bunch of things to meet the number of batteries they actually need to achieve their goals. So we think that this means that, not that they're looking to bury Tesla, but we just think that they're a very focused company. They've got quality down. They've got considerably the best producer in the world, et cetera. Jeff Burke just talked about terawatt production. I have to admit that there's megawatt hour, so we have 100 meg cars or different battery pack sizes for the cars, and then we have gigawatt hours, supposedly a fully built out facility in Nevada was going to be 35 gigawatt hours, but Elon indicated a year ago that the number would jump to 120 gigawatt hours because without much building increase size, you could get up to that number just because of using the space you already have better. So we've heard like 3 or 4 different answers to how this is going to work for Elon, and we don't know which one he's going to do, but we can tell after it happens what the answer is to the question. So I'm happy to try to field questions based on what we know, but I also like to be, when I'm speculating, I also like to articulate that so that you guys know when it is that I know exactly what's happening and I can present a well-constructed argument versus when I'm guessing. And I'd say, it'd be nice if Tesla could get up to 120 gigawatt hours, because that would translate, I think, into 2 million cars ability, because they need batteries for the trucks and all these other vehicles that are being produced as well. Any rate, so we typically don't like to wear out our welcome. I just wanted to note, based on living in the Washington, D.C. area, we've got our biggest football game of the year coming up. We think Lamar Jackson's going to be awesome against the Niners tomorrow. We get a preview of the Super Bowl in the process. And so it's kind of exciting times. And I've got my 38-inch TV ready to go so I can sit close and look at it and enjoy, not get wet in the process. But I definitely think it's going to be an exciting day in the greater Washington, D.C. area, namely in Baltimore tomorrow. At any rate, wanted to thank you all for your comments and questions. Wanted to remind you, 25 leg lifts a day on each leg. I also wanted to encourage you not to go to bed within 4 hours of eating. Best case, minimum 2 hours. It avoids acid reflux issues and other health problems in the process. At any rate, we look forward to our next conversation. Wow. Interesting. There was a comment that just came across that there's someone working secretly. I think it's Johannes is working on a secret battery chemistry. I wanted to remind you that we had a Dr. Sklar on, and we're going to get him for an interview. And what he's suggesting is there's going to be a box under your car, and it's going to have multiple technologies inside that box. Those technologies will switch according to what your driving style is. So we think this is going to be interesting. Jerry, we do think that China's going to supply batteries, absolutely. And, there's going to be batteries produced there. It just looks like Tesla has decided that if they can't deliver a battery at a certain energy density, they're going to outsource to someone who can. At this point, based on experience, we think that that's going to be LG, but don't put it past CATL to have a product that'll be competitive. The one issue is, what do you do with the quality issues that have been had by many Chinese factories for a long time, and that being baked in your car unsuccessfully? Good question. JR, you're asking me some really good questions there about buying calls and puts and where things are headed. I have to admit that the process we see from a fundamental investment standpoint is that there's a growth in revenue that's happening for Tesla. And if you have 20,000 more cars put on the street by China from that facility over 2 months, that's actually a growth in revenue. So if the market can see that, doubling of vehicles produced based on the support of China, I think that the earnings from the next round implying this will push the stock nicely higher. So I wouldn't say puts are a good idea on Tesla, because you probably want to focus your puts when revenue and profit is falling. I really think calls are appropriate. I specifically think covered calls are great when it comes to Tesla, because there is, some bounce around with the market of the stock price, and you can make a lot of money that way. 3% a month can actually accumulate nicely. And we're going to ask one of our friends of the show to go through some research he did on the covered call process for Tesla that I think you guys will find kind of interesting. And he actually has it posted at drdewar.com. You know, excellent comment. There's a lot of great comments rolling here that I, again, we'll add to the end so those that weren't there live can actually participate in that. Just a reminder, if you're interested in SpaceX shares, please send us at Tesla Fan Insight at Facebook a private message with an email and number so that we can keep you abreast of what we're doing in that regard. At any rate, I wanted to thank Jerry. I mean, there's so many people, and I was trying to do the show and didn't see everybody's name and remember it, but Johannes, Per, Donovan, there's a number of you. Hello, appreciate that. And we appreciate you taking time to watch. Wanted to remind you to like and subscribe, and thank you for joining us. Support on Patreon, greatly appreciated. Hope your holiday was good, and we look forward to our next show, and always appreciate constructive criticism about how we can improve our show. Tesla got a Car of the Year prize in Danish. Thank you. Greetings from the Danish Tesla Mafia was a comment that was just shared. At any rate, definitely appreciate your time, and hope you found the information we shared today useful. I was hoping to have this great answer to what's going to happen, but we can speculate based on what we've seen and expect and go from there. At any rate, have a great day. In German, we say Tschüss, macht's gut. In French, we say au revoir. Hebrew, lehitrot. Farsi, Khoda Hafez. Zdravstvuyte, Russian, Ni hao ma, Chinese, both of which are hello, not goodbye. And Hejdu, thanks to our brother Donovan in Sweden. And in Jamaica, we say enough respect, Wak Woodman. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day. Farvel is from Per. Have a great day, and thanks, and bye for now.